Hello guys, now we are on the third game of Ivan Sokolov's Strategical Masterpieces, and this game is a Nimzo Indian classical variation. It is played between Sokolov as white and Wilder as black in Hanning 1989. The game goes d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, queen c2, castles a3, bishop takes c3 check, queen takes c3 and d6. This is relatively rare continuation. Black first develops his b8 knight and later decides about his light squared bishop. However, this system is a little passive compared with the usual b6. Now bishop to g5, knight bd7, e3 and rook e8. Here in the event of e5 and bishop to d3, now ed4 and ed4, there is queen e8 check, knight to e2 and knight to e4. Black captures one of the white bishops but still doesn't gain equality after queen to c1, and now knight takes g5, queen takes g5 and queen to d8. Now queen d2, rook to e8, short castle, knight to f8, knight to g3, bishop d7, now f4 by white, and when white retains a space advantage, here but black didn't play e5 here. Here rook e8, he played rook e8 and he could have even continued with b6. Now bishop to d3, h6, bishop h4, e5, knight e2, ed4. Black can also delay this capture, opting for knight f8, though in that case white may later decide to recapture on d4 with the queen or knight. Now after ed4, if at all queen takes d4, then knight to e5, then short castle and queen to e7. White has just a very slight edge here. After queen takes e5, if at all knight to c5, bishop takes f6, bishop knight takes d3 check, then the surprising move king to d2 comes. So then in the game, after e takes d4, then now knight f8, queen to c2, bishop to g4. Here knight g6 simply loses a pawn after bishop takes, f takes, queen takes, queen e7, castles, here, and the knight cannot be taken because of bishop takes f6 here. So then first the queen goes to e4, then queen takes e4, knight takes e4. Now rook fd1. Though funnily enough, this occurred in a top level game in Barcelona, in a World Cup match in Barcelona in 1989. So then black can't play knight g6 now. He played bishop g4. Now f3, bishop to h5, short castle, bishop to g6. Here knight c3. White has a positional advantage and has no need to ask for trouble by provoking black into instead of knight c3 with bishop e4, then bishop takes, f takes, now g5, e5, d5, d5, and knight g4. So knight c3. Now bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, knight g6, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, and f4. And this pawn cannot be taken because after knight takes f4, queen to d2, then after g5, and there is g3, knight h3 check, king g2, queen to e6, and now knight d5 with a knight fork on f6 or c7 to follow. This little tactical detail enables white to push his f-pawn as far as f6, driving the opponent's queen and knight to passive squares. This ensures white a large advantage. So then after f4, there is c6, f5, knight f8, knight e4, queen d8. The queen has to go all the way back. If queen e7, then rook a e1, and after rook a e1, and rook a e1, there is f6. Rook a e1, there is black plays f6, then queen g3, rook e d8, then knight to g5, queen to c7, then knight to e6 is hardly a path black should want to follow. And after queen to e7, then rook a e1. If at all black plays f6, d5 instead of f6, Then white goes f6, then d, and d takes e4, then queen g3 is after this. You lose the queen. Now, anyways, there are two threats now. So it is better to take the queen all the way back to d8. Now f6, d5, queen g3, knight g6, knight d6, rook to e6, and now knight takes b7. It is obvious that white has a large advantage and he has to start looking for the most efficient execution. The ending arising after c5. Now rook takes f6, rook a e1, rook takes f1, then rook takes f1, then knight to h8. Now knight takes b7, queen to b8. Now queen takes b8, rook takes, and knight to a5 also looked promising for white. However, the white player want to keep the queens on the board and make sure that black's kingside pawns structure will be permanently damaged. So he went for knight takes b7, then queen b6, now knight c5, rook takes f6, rook takes f6, g takes f6, then queen f2, d takes c4, knight d7, queen d8, knight takes f6, king h8, rook f1, rook b8, queen d2, now king g7, knight h5 check, king g8, queen takes h6, queen takes d4 check, king h1, and rook e8. Here the only move to prolong the struggle after rook takes b2 loses to h3 with knight f6 check to follow. So after rook e8, now queen g5, rook e6, queen f5, rook e7, now h3. This pawn move eliminates black only possible source of counterplay, and that is the back rank tactics. There remains for white only the need to perform a simple execution. Now, queen to d8. After h3, queen goes to d8. If at all queen takes b2, then queen c8 check, knight to f8, then queen takes c6, wins. So after queen to d8, now queen f6, queen f8, queen c3, knight e5, queen f6 check, knight f6 check, king h8, rook e1, queen d8, knight g4. Here white avoids rook takes e5, because after queen d1 check, king h2, now queen to d6, and knight after knight g4, f6. But although white happens to win anyway with queen b4, if at all takes, it cannot be taken with the queen now. He takes, then the queen is lost. The queen b4, queen is taken, then rook check is coming. So rook takes e5 is not correct. So after knight g4, f6, knight takes f6, knight d3, rook f1, knight e5, now queen to g3. Here black resigned, and this was one of a beautiful strategical masterpiece by Sokolov. I will be meeting you in the next game. Thank you all.